It is Sunday, March 8th, 2020. I'm outside the Lakeshore Unitarian Universalist congregation in Lachine, and I'm doing an International Women's Day themed protest against Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, particularly clergy sexual misconduct, clergy sexual abuse, which affects mostly women. And ironically, a great number of Unitarian Universalist women are basically complicit in the clergy sexual misconduct and the cover-up and denial of clergy sexual misconduct, particularly female Unitarian Universalist Association leaders such as Reverend, she's not a reverend, the former Unitarian Universalist Association Executive Vice President Kathleen K. Montgomery has certainly been involved in the suppression of clergy misconduct complaints, the cover-up and denial of clergy abuse. She basically presided over cover-up and denial for over 30 years as her role as the Executive Vice President of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Perhaps we can put the accent on vice there. But she's not the only one by any means. There are other female Unitarian Universalist ministers who have participated in the cover-up and denial of clergy sexual misconduct, or who have basically not provided justice to victims of clergy sexual misconduct in various ways. I can think of Reverend Beth Miller. I can think of Reverend Dr. Tracy Robinson Harris. I can think of various others. Ironically, even the most outspoken critics of Unitarian Universalist clergy sexual misconduct, the female ones, such as Reverend Gail Seavey and Reverend Deborah Pope-Lance, even these two ministers who have delivered Berry Street lectures about Unitarian Universalist clergy sexual misconduct problem, even they are keeping secrets. You know, there's things that they know about that they aren't talking about. They are not speaking out against things that they should be speaking out against. So even the people who on the surface appear to be the how can I put it? Basically the champions of victims of clergy sexual misconduct, even these two women are not even close to being the champions they could be or should be, if they spoke out against, some things that they're not speaking out against. So I could go on and on and on. This picket sign, it was actually created to protest against the fact that female CBC journalists, namely Carol Off and Ainsley McClellan, have aided and abetted Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse cover-up and denial by interviewing Montreal Unitarian clergy abuse cover-up enabler Sue Montgomery and allowing her to brazenly lie about clergy sexual abuse on CBC As It Happens and Montreal Daybreak radio shows, and letting her get away with it. It's one thing for them to sort of do a softball interview that's not really questioning Sue Montgomery's claims, and to be sort of bamboozled into letting her brazenly lie about clergy sexual abuse in a way that effectively denies any clergy sexual abuse in the Unitarian Universalist Church. It's one thing for that to happen. It's another thing for them to stubbornly refuse to correct the record when I contact them after I'm aware of the fact that they allowed Sue Montgomery to lie. Oh, I got a nice honk and a thumbs up there. Like I said, it's one thing for them to perhaps be misled by Sue Montgomery, to perhaps naively believe everything she tells them, but when they don't give me the opportunity to correct the record, after Sue Montgomery has lied, well, that's a problem. And they have stubbornly refused to interview me. As It Happens did add some of sort of my take on things to a written online webpage associated with the radio show that they aired, but they never at any time gave me any airtime to counter the lies that Sue Montgomery told on As It Happens. And that's a nationally broadcast CBC radio show. Literally thousands of Canadians from coast to coast hear that show. And they heard Sue Montgomery at one point say, "There's no such sexual abuse in the Unitarian Church." That's ridiculous. There absolutely is the sexual abuse that I'm talking about, and in particular, there is a certain amount of pedophilia and rape, which I believe what she meant, when she said such sexual abuse. I am exposing and denouncing, most ironically, what the Unitarian Universalist Association's Canadian attorney describes as such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. And Sue Montgomery is well aware of that. She's been aware of that since at least early December of 2012, if not years earlier, but certainly since December 6th of 2012, Montreal Unitarian Sue Montgomery was put on notice that the Unitarian Universalist Association falsely accused me of violating Canada's blasphemy law in clergy sex abuse cover-up legal bullying, which sought to intimidate me into taking down blog posts, i.e. memory-holding blog posts that tell the readily verifiable truth about such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by Reverend Mac Wallace Mitchell and also by Reverend Dr. Victoria Weinstein's first parish Norwell parishioner, Richard Buell. To say nothing of other Unitarian Universalist ministers or Sunday school teachers or lay leaders who are guilty of pedophilia and rape, because they're not the only ones, I can assure you. Just want to make sure this thing is still running. We had a little mishap earlier. Yes, we are recording, but the battery is low. Yes, in the previous clip, the camera fell down. What happened is the wind caught some of my freestanding picket signs. There was a gust of wind. It blew the picket signs into the tripod, and that knocked the tripod down. So there was a bit of a little mishap there with the tripod when wind blew my picket signs into the tripod. So we got some people coming this way. I'll just step back to let them pass, and we shall let them see the signs here. So it is International Women's Day, and as I said, I am taking the occasion to protest against not only the clergy sexual misconduct, clergy sexual abuse that affects mostly women in the Unitarian Universalist religious community, but the fact that a whole lot of Unitarian Universalist women are effectively complicit in the clergy abuse cover-up and denial, if not the clergy abuse itself. When they basically, at minimum, are passively complicit in terms of complicit silence, not speaking out against it, not doing anything to ensure that victims receive actual justice. But it's worse than that. There are quite a number of Unitarian Universalist women, female UUA leaders, that is the Unitarian Universalist Association, female Unitarian Universalist ministers, and other female Unitarian Universalist lay leaders or lay people who literally actively aid and abet the cover-up and denial of clergy sexual misconduct committed by Unitarian Universalist ministers. And again, there's also the issue of Sunday school teachers who are guilty of clergy, or I should say sexual misconduct, and there's also, lay leaders and so on. So we got a car pulling up here. It just stopped short of the tripod. So for some reason it's got a Canadian flag flying out of the window there. So I'm just going to make sure that the camera's still recording here. And yes, it is, but I noticed the battery is quite low. I'm going to have to change the battery. It's fairly cold weather today, so that's affecting the
Good morning.
Good morning.
So good to see you.
It's always a good morning when I'm accused of blasphemy by atheist Unitarians.
Oh dear, oh dear.
Oh dear, oh dear.
We won't do that.
Well, yeah, your religion is doing it. Your religion accused...
I'm a bit ignorant, so...
Well, yes, you are a bit ignorant.
That's okay.
I'm glad you admit it. Actually, one of the themes of my protest is the willful ignorance of Unitarian Universalists. The fact that they just don't want to know about their
Why
clergy.
don't you... Listen, I have a good idea.
Yeah.
Why don't you help? There's so many women that are homeless.
Right.
Why don't you try to help them? I would like to.
Why don't you help the women who have been sexually abused by Unitarian Universalist ministers? What do you do to help women that have been abused by Unitarian Universalist ministers? Women who've been abused by Unitarian Universalist ministers? Yes, but we're talking about Unitarians. I'm not, of course it happens in other religions too, but I'm talking about your religion. So here's, this is what we're talking about. Women, basically not caring about sexual abuse in their religious community, in this case the Unitarian Universalist religious community, and I just got a perfect example of that. The woman even said, I'm ignorant. No, I don't want to know, really. And are we recording? Yes, so we got that all. That's all recorded. That's excellent. I think on that note, we're going to wrap this up because the battery is low and could die at any minute. But I was very happy to get that little conversation, shall we say.